This video is the story of a man who lived like a violent storm and painted like one too. It's about the similarity between his life and his work. And for me, there's a question that keeps coming up. Does the chaos and controversy behind it make the art more powerful? Does the drama behind it come across on the canvas? We'll follow Caravaggio's life from plague-ridden Milan to the back streets of Rome, from the height of fame to exile and the mystery of his death. Along the way, we'll see some of the paintings that tracked every stage of that journey. And ask whether his darkness and his genius were two sides of the same coin, one not possible without the other.
Ooh, how exciting. It'd be like a fairy tale, but, a bit more stabby.
Like if Cinderella glass-slippered someone in face.
Yeah, that doesn't sound quite as magical.
And it all begins with a boy named Michelangelo, a boy who would grow up to paint with light and fight in the dark. So, is Caravaggio amazing? Michelangelo Merisi, the boy who would one day be known simply as Caravaggio, was born in Milan in 1571. This was the late Renaissance. The greats like Leonardo and Michelangelo were already gone. The world of art was polished and beautiful, all about balance and perfection. Caravaggio's childhood wasn't balanced or perfect. When he was just 6, the plague hit Milan and took both his father and his grandfather. It would have been impossible for him to escape the horrors of the plague and the dark sights that it brought, the panic, the dead, the fragility of life. Maybe that's where the seed was planted for Caravaggio, in both his view of the world and his art. Life is brutal, and I'll show it that way. His mother took young Michelangelo and his siblings out of Milan to escape the disease. They went to a smaller town in Lombardy, northern Italy, called Caravaggio. And that name would stick. Michelangelo Merisi di Caravaggio. Michelangelo Merisi from Caravaggio. Caravaggio.
Good job they didn't move to Bognor, or Pratt's Bottom. Wouldn't have sounded quite the same.
Or Shitterton. What? It's a real place. Yeah, I've got loads of them, mate. Cockermouth, Upper Thong, Finger in Hoe. They're all real.
By 13, his mother had him apprenticed to Simone Pietrasano, who had once studied with the Renaissance great Titian. This is where Caravaggio learned the craft, how to grind pigments, stretch canvases, copy the masters. But even at that age, he wasn't drawn to the polished beauty of the Renaissance. He preferred rough edges, ordinary faces, the kind of people he actually saw. In 1584, while he was still training, his mother died too. So by the time he was a teenager, both parents were gone and the trouble was starting. His temper was bubbling and he was getting into fights. After one particularly violent brawl in which a policeman got injured, he was running from the law in the direction of Rome.
The police. The police.
Rome was the centre of art, the place to be if you wanted to make your name. But it was also a city of brothels, taverns and knife fights in the street. Caravaggio was young, broke, volatile and hungry for work. And he would find work. And trouble. In Rome, the paintings that would make him famous were waiting. But so too were the fights that would follow him for the rest of his life. The first job Caravaggio landed in Rome was in the studio of Giuseppe Cesare, known as the Cavaliere d'Arpino, a favourite artist of Pope Clement VIII. It wasn't glamorous work. Caravaggio spent his days painting flowers and fruit, the background details for Cesare's commissions. But Caravaggio wasn't built to stay in the background. He either walked out after a particularly heated argument or was sacked. Stories vary. One rumour claims Cesare saw his growing talent and pushed him aside, afraid of this volatile young painter who might outshine him.
Yeah, a bit like what you do to me, you mean.
Another story says Caravaggio, while off sick, was working on his own painting, Young Sick Bacchus. This painting is of Bacchus, the Roman god of wine. But look at it, a pale, funny colour, ill-looking lad holding grapes, lips dry and cracked, eyes slightly unfocused. This is a self-portrait of a young Caravaggio, painted from a mirror while ill. Possibly malaria because of the jaundiced colour. This isn't a glowing Renaissance god of wine. This is someone who looks genuinely sick and normal. From the very start, Caravaggio wasn't painting ideal beauty. He was painting the truth, reality, even when it was uncomfortable. And even here, you can see Caravaggio starting to play with that intense contrast of light and dark he'd become famous for. Caravaggio's paintings are dark, but then, like someone has slammed a flash of light across the scene.
Mamma mia, at last, someone introduced me. I am Il Lampo, the light, the legend. Without me, every Caravaggio would be darker than a Goth's diary.
Yeah, Il Lampo, apparently. I know, another distraction. Flash in Italian, he says. People click for Caravaggio and get cartoons. What's that about? Yeah, you're right. Grow up. That's what I said too. What?
After leaving Cesari's studio, Caravaggio lived hand to mouth, painting whatever he could sell, portraits of ordinary people, street scenes and still lifes. Then came card sharps. 3 figures around a table, a tense game of cards. One cheats, another signals from behind. The faces are sly, human, alive. Card sharps is a snapshot of the streets he lived on, the reality of the deception, the nastiness that he knew.
Ah, truffatore! The cheater, they cheated, and the one who's too stupid to notice, eh? I shine on them all, bella figura. Without me, it's just 3 idiots squinting in the dark, like, oh, hello, who's there? Who said that?
That painting changed everything. It caught the attention of Cardinal Francesco del Monte, one of the most influential patrons in Rome. Del Monte invited Caravaggio to live with him, fed him, clothed him, and introduced him to the city's elite. With Del Monte's support, Caravaggio secured his first major commission, his big break, the Contarelli Chapel in the church of San Luigi dei Francesi. The chapel needed paintings about St. Matthew. With Del Monte's help and connections, Caravaggio was the man. These are 3 canvases of the 3 major stages of St. Matthew's life: the calling of St. Matthew, the inspiration of St. Matthew, and the martyrdom of St. Matthew. And his work stunned Rome. Instead of polished heavenly scenes, he painted the gospel as if it was happening in the back streets of the city. St. Matthew wasn't an untouchable saint, he was someone you might recognise. His figures had dirty feet, worn hands and expressions that felt real. If a miracle was happening, this is what it would look like, really.
St. Matthew, eh? Dio mio, those feet are filthy, but I make them glow. They call me the Ole Pedicurist. You could sell them feet pics online, eh?
This was the moment Caravaggio's style and his reputation exploded. But so did his temper. As his paintings grew more famous, his rap sheet started to fill. He was arrested for carrying a sword illegally, but he didn't stop wearing it. He hit a nobleman with a club, he insulted guards, and every time he was pulled in, Del Monte's influence and his friends in high places got him out again. His life was violent, and so was his art. Caravaggio was painting saints for chapels by day and fighting like a demon by night. Rome was certainly starting to talk about him, this rough, brilliant painter who just couldn't stay out of trouble.
Ooh, he's like a firework, isn't he, sir? Beautiful and impossible to ignore, but loud and dangerous.
Yeah, and then someone ends up losing an eyebrow.
Caravaggio was on the edge of greatness, and already on the edge of control. And when the masterpieces came, so did the chaos. By 1600, Caravaggio wasn't just another painter in Rome. He was the painter, a star. The commissions came fast, major churches, noble families, powerful patrons. This was the period when he produced some of his masterpieces. The Taking of Christ, a dark, chaotic scene. Jesus, betrayed by Judas, kissed to identify him to the soldiers looking for him. You can just feel the violence about to come. And just look at the light on that armour.
This is my moment. Look at that shine, bellissimo. Standing ovation, please. I don't enter a room, I arrive. All over their faces.
This was Caravaggio's style now fully formed. Tenebrism, a more dramatic version of chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro being light and dark, usually more gradual shading than Caravaggio's harsh contrasts slammed together.
Oh yes, like when you tiptoe to the fridge in the night for a little sleepy snack, a something, a little choco nib if you will. You've had a long day, you deserve it, sir. You open the fridge and then bam! The light bless your face like divine judgment, illuminating the little piglet you are. You remember every snack you've ever loved. Your heart yearns for the scone that betrayed you, the trifle that made you feel alive.
Is it me, or are his lines getting longer? Why are his lines getting longer?
Caravaggio's models were the people around him. Prostitutes, beggars, drunks, day labourers. He said it plainly. These are my models. Like in the crucifixion of St. Peter, another masterpiece, an old man grimacing, being hoisted upside down on a cross. The executioner's strain and sweat. The scene feels real, heavy, human. St. Peter looks like a guy he saw down the pub the night before. This style shocked people. The church loved the power of his paintings and were looking for a new way to represent the piety and simple humility of the Bible. But not all of them were happy. Some of his works were rejected for being too raw, too filthy. His Death of the Virgin was refused by the monks who commissioned it. Caravaggio had used a drowned prostitute's body as the model for the Virgin Mary. Her bare feet, bloated, caused outrage.
The monks, they say, oh, it was too real. Cry, wah. Troppo vero, sorry boys. Dry your eyes. I don't do soft focus. You want an Instagram filter? Call someone else.
While his paintings were climbing to new heights, Caravaggio's behaviour was sinking even lower. One night, in a tavern, an argument over a meal ended with Caravaggio chucking a plate of artichokes at a waiter's face. Another time, he found a new way of lashing out. Instead of going for his sword, he went for a pen, writing poems so vicious about another painter that he ended up jailed for libel.
I've written a poem about you, actually.
Really? Okay, let's hear it.
There once was a guy in a hat who thought he was right clever and all that. He talked about art, but he smells like a fart. And it takes him too long to edit the videos, and that means he doesn't quite get enough videos out, and even the ones that he does, they're like random, like what? Why has he chosen that subject?
Jail stint followed jail stint, but just as often his friends in high places got him out of the trouble he was in. A public notice at the time summed him up. After a fortnight's work, he will swagger about for a month or two with a sword at his side and a servant following him, from one ball court to the next, ever ready to engage in a fight or an argument, so that it is most awkward to get along with him. Caravaggio injured an important man in a fight over Lena, a prostitute and one of his models, possibly his lover. Was he defending her honour somehow? Have we got him wrong so far? Maybe, but nothing about Caravaggio suggests a hero with a heart of gold. This was probably just another explosion of violence. He fled to Genoa for a time, but when he came back, the trouble didn't stop. He was sued by his landlady for unpaid rent. In response, he threw rocks through her window.
The amazing weather.
Caravaggio was a star. He was also, more and more, a problem. And then, in 1606, his life boiled over. The fights that had defined his life turned deadly. In May 1606, during yet another brawl, Caravaggio killed a man. The victim was Ranuccio Tomasoni, a dodgy but well-connected character. Now, accounts differ. Some say it started over a gambling debt, others suggest it was about a prostitute they both knew, and that Caravaggio was in the process of trying to castrate Tomasoni with his sword and things went too far. This was beyond just another scrape with the law, this was murder. Caravaggio was sentenced to death, and a bounty was put on his head. And the reward was dead or alive, so anyone could turn up with Caravaggio's head in a bag and collect the reward. His powerful, wealthy friends, even Cardinal Del Monte, couldn't save him this time. Caravaggio ran. He fled south to Naples, but even in exile he didn't lose his genius touch, the 7 Works of Mercy. This chaotic, crowded masterpiece shows an entire city street with various acts of charity. Feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, bury the dead, visit the imprisoned, clothe the naked, visit the sick, refresh the thirsty. It's dark, gritty, but alive, with that brilliant light-dark contrast. A buzzing scene of forgiveness painted by a man running for his life.
7 acts of mercy all in one street. Feeding, healing, burying. I was rushing around all over the place. Like ciao, ciao, ciao. I need holiday.
From Naples, Caravaggio crossed the sea to Malta, chasing the protection from the one power even Rome respected. The Knights of Malta. These were a powerful military group of, warrior monks. Formerly the Knights of St. John, they defended Christian land from the Ottoman Empire. And as they made Malta their home, they were now the Knights of Malta. Unbelievably, he succeeded. He painted for them, he impressed them, and in 1608 he was admitted to the order. Caravaggio became a Knight of Malta. This made him a nobleman with privileges and honour. The beheading of St. John the Baptist. For the Knights, Caravaggio painted his largest work. The execution scene sprawls across the canvas, grim but monumental. And scratched into the red of St. John's blood, Caravaggio left the only signature he ever wrote on an artwork.
Caravaggio's biggest canvas. Grande. And what do I get to shine on? A guy cutting off an head. Mama always said, go work at the beach. Plenty of work there for light. Bouncing off the sea. Beautiful job. But no, not me.
So Caravaggio had found some redemption and a good life. He was now a knight, an important guy and protected. So does he carry on developing his genius, or being a better knight, or simply settle down? Nope. Caravaggio gonna Caravaggio. He got into a violent argument with a senior knight. He broke into his quarters, beat him up, and then, as an extra insult, scarred his face. A deliberate, humiliating act known as freggio. The Knights of Malta couldn't ignore that, and Caravaggio was back in prison. But he didn't stay. He escaped, breaking out of this supposedly inescapable fortress prison. Caravaggio must have had some help. Again. The Knights of Malta stripped him of his title, describing him as a foul and rotten member. Caravaggio fled again.
Does a lot of running away for someone who thinks he's Mr. Tough Guy.
This time to Sicily, where incredibly he still managed to get prestigious and well-paid commissions. His style was evolving. Now his paintings showed lonely figures in huge dark spaces, ragged people, fragile and afraid. Is this how he is now feeling? The Burial of St. Lucy. A heavy, oppressive painting, the saint's lifeless body almost swallowed by shadow, the mourners bent and broken around her. The Raising of Lazarus and the Adoration of the Shepherds. These works, painted in exile, are different to the ones in Rome. They're emptier, they don't have the same polish or theatre. They're bleak, as if Caravaggio's own desperation is all over the canvas. Caravaggio was always a bit weird, but he was acting increasingly strange, doing things like ripping up paintings at the slightest criticism, and sleeping fully clothed and armed.
Ripping up art, not liking feedback. It'd have fit right in on this channel. Remember when you ripped up that script just because your cup of tea went cold?
Yeah, it ruined my vibe actually.
Yeah, proper Caravaggio.
Caravaggio was running out of safe places, and with the death sentence hanging over him, there was only one move left. A desperate gamble to go home. By 1609, Caravaggio was exhausted, hunted, and running out of places to hide. His only hope was for a pardon, forgiveness from the Pope for killing Ranuccio Tomassoni. If he could get it, he could return to Rome and finally stop running. He went back to Naples, and he painted. David with the head of Goliath. Another severed head, another haunting self-portrait. Probably my favourite Caravaggio. Young David lifts Goliath's head, and it's Caravaggio's head. This painting was as a gift for Cardinal Borghese, someone with the power to get him his pardon. The painting is almost a plea. Look at me. What have I done? Forgive me, please. Was that message for Cardinal Borghese, the viewer, or himself? But the forgiveness he needed didn't come quickly enough. That same year, Caravaggio was attacked in Naples. The man who came for him was allegedly the Knight of Malta he had scarred and humiliated. And this attack was revenge. The attack left Caravaggio disfigured, his own sfregiato, slashed and scarred. Reports say that his face was unrecognisable. Some say his eyesight suffered too, and that this damage changed the way he painted in his final months. The Martyrdom of St. Ursula. His last known painting, the scene is smaller, quieter, almost subdued. Some art historians believe you can feel his failing strength in the brushwork, less precision, more blur. In July 1610, Caravaggio boarded a ship headed for Rome. he was carrying paintings he hoped would be gifts for the Pope, offerings for his pardon. A pardon that was looking likely, or according to some, had already been granted.
Happy ending, oh lovely. Thanks for watching everyone. Like and subscribe and we'll see you next time.
He never made it. Caravaggio died on the journey, aged just 38. What happened? No one knows for sure. Some say he died of a fever, others think he collapsed from heat stroke on a beach, desperately trying to catch up with the ship that had sailed on without him. Others say infected wounds. There are also theories of murder, of course. After his death, Caravaggio's name faded. His gritty, violent style went out of fashion. For centuries, he was almost forgotten, until the 20th century, when his work was rediscovered. And here we are, celebrating this complicated, divisive genius and monster all over again. So how do you feel about Caravaggio? Let me know in the comments. I think he is definitely someone you're going to love or hate. You're not indifferent to Caravaggio. And I could have gone a lot further and deeper into his character and actions. We've not even touched on his, let's say, romantic life. Briefly, we know he was frequently with female prostitutes, attending all kinds of, let's say, sexy parties with his rich mates. And we also know he was bisexual and had male lovers. Young male lovers, with accusations of, at best, probably what we'd call grooming today.
So he combed his hair, well groomed, important to look smart, carry on.
Of course, we can't know everything about him for sure, and the narrative of Caravaggio is very much, look at all the horrible stuff that this horrible guy did. But we should remember he probably wasn't on his own in those days. This was hundreds of years ago, and however crazy it sounds, standards and normalities were different. We can warp people to fit our narratives to a certain extent. I suspect that, as with most people, there is the capacity for good and the capacity for bad. Unspeakable bad.
I've never done anything bad. Well, once walked into a door, but I did write him a sorry note. He just ate it though. Straight into his greedy little flappy mouth.
The reason I put Caravaggio on my list to make a video about is because some of his art is some of my favourite, and there is something about him that just draws me to him. I knew he was a murdering trouble causer, and that made me like him more, intrigued by him more. Okay, he's that long ago that his misgivings are more like a movie villain to us than someone down the street who we can just judge as, let's say, an idiot. But even still, is it a rock star type thing that makes this bad behaviour appealing? Is there a part of us all that would like to walk around like Caravaggio, saying and doing whatever you want, whenever you want, whatever the outcome? Possibly. I try to be kind, I try to be amazing, whatever, but I do have to try a lot of the time. I think I'm guilty of building my own picture of Caravaggio in my head. There are a lot of ifs, and if your picture is different, you might be thinking I'm crazy or ridiculous or even doubting whether I can be a good person. For example, if Caravaggio is simply a thug swaggering around town thinking he's better than everyone, with so much success and adulation, surrounded by sycophants making him feel invincible, protected by his wealth, his fame and his rich powerful mates, then yeah, horrible, not interested in that guy. But if Caravaggio is troubled, tortured, unable to understand the things going on in his head, unable to control his behaviour, dictated to by addictions and compulsions, forever submerged in his art, obsessed, taking up so much of his processing power with thoughts of light, dark and creating. He can't function as a normal person in a normal world that he loves, let's not forget. He's someone who wants to paint the faces of normal, struggling people, uninterested in showing the polished, grand, fake world he is now a part of. He's real, flawed, just like his art. Now if that is Caravaggio, then yeah, that is the guy. Have I sold him to you?
No, he's
So is Caravaggio a better artist for being this bad guy? Can bad guys make good art?
well, yeah. What do you want someone like him making glittery arts?
Sorry, were you talking? Be amazing, whatever.
Would his art have lost something if he was clean cut? I'm not sure. But I think that things like artistic output, much like personality, are a combination of thousands of micro decisions, experiences, feelings on top of feelings on top of feelings. Complicated. And the more complicated the better. And Caravaggio was, if we're being generous, complicated. This movie villain, the rebel bad guy character or complicated tortured genius, adds context to the art. I think emotion does go into art. Sadness, anger, elation, passion, love. And that's why paintings are better than printouts or AI art. I like my artists to be unreal, mythical almost, sad, broken, controversial. I feel like I'm sat here defending a horrible guy who did horrible things, and I can't imagine doing that for someone nowadays. And I still don't have my feelings about this kind of thing tied up neatly. I do feel bad for being drawn to Caravaggio, and I also feel annoyed at myself for feeling bad.
You think too much, pal. Put kettle on. Come on, let's wrap this up.
This guy is undoubtedly getting cancelled if he was around today, isn't he? Jeez, a lot of celebrities have been cancelled for a lot less than what Caravaggio did. But if that had happened to him, look at all the incredible artwork we wouldn't have had. Does the artist who makes art you admire need to be your hero too? Or can you separate them? Has the age of the bad guy gone? Imagine even something like a rock star trashing a hotel room. A few decades ago, that might have added to their mystique and enigmatic genius. Now that behaviour would be condemned and picked to pieces. And how can you say anything other than, yeah, rightly so? But we should be careful with wanting people to be perfect. Nobody is perfect.
He painted with me. He fought in the dark. It was trouble, but he make me feel something. And my work with him, it means something. But now he's gone. The light, my light, that stays forever. Enjoy my work. Ciao.
Can we get him unplugged now?
I'd love to be able to answer all my questions about controversial figures and their creations. And trying to understand them is part of being human. Being a good human. Being an amazing human. We are all complicated. For now, I'm going to hide all those questions in a little box in my head and just look at a few paintings and admire the light and the dark. Because of Caravaggio, because of everything, despite everything. Be amazing, whatever. I'm a small channel and I put all this together myself, so if you haven't yet, please have a think about clicking on subscribe up here, or watch one of my other videos, or say hello in the comments. I'd love to get to know you, and it'd really help my channel grow. I'm looking for the amazing in the world, whether that's arts, sciences, philosophies, and what it means to be amazing. There's amazing in the world, and in you.